Hello, boys and girls. I'm so happy to be here with you virtually. My name's Laura, and I'm a beekeeper. I'm going to be talking to you today about the honeybee. Let's talk about the life cycle of a honeybee. The queen lays an egg into a hexagon wax cell. Here's a model of an egg. They're much smaller in real life and very hard to find.
Look very carefully in the cells here. Do you see the little eggs? It looks like little tiny grains of rice.
The egg hatches into a tiny white legless larva. It almost looks like a little shrimp.
Again, look carefully in these cells and you might see the larva. It's very small and hard to see.
The worker bees will feed this larva. Eventually, it transforms into a pupa. The pupa almost looks like a full-grown bee. It has legs, eyes, wings. Finally, it emerges from the cell. And here's the honeybee.
It will either be a worker bee, a queen bee, or a drone.
Let's talk about the worker bee, all females. There are between 20 and 80,000 worker bees in a hive, depending on how strong a colony is. They do all of the jobs. They forage, make nectar into honey, they feed the babies, they take care of the queen. They live between 5 and 7 weeks, working until they die. Next, we'll talk about the drone. Drones live for about 4 to 5 weeks and do no work inside the hive. They are fed by the workers or they help themselves from the store of pollen and nectar in the combs. Their function is to fertilize a new queen. This male bee has no stinger. Notice the difference from him and the worker bee. He has a big black body, while the worker bee had a smaller orange and black body. And finally, the queen bee. There's only one queen. Notice her body is longer than the others. The queen may live from 2 to 5 years, except for a short period at the end of her life when one of her daughters will take over the colony. She's the only egg-laying female and will lay between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs every day. She cannot feed or bathe herself. Wherever she goes in the hive, the nearest workers turn towards her, licks her body, and feeds her, and they encourage her to lay eggs all day. It doesn't seem like such a royal life after all.
Can you find the queen? She's marked with a blue dot. She knows what kind of egg to lay, drone or worker, by how the worker bees create the cell.
The most important thing that a honeybee does for us is pollinate. Honeybees account for up to 80% of all pollination. Albert Einstein once said, "If the bee disappears from the surface of the earth, man would have no more than 4 years to live." Because of the honeybee, we have all the food that we eat and love.
Pollen is collected on the head of the honeybee. It's removed by the front legs and mixed with a little nectar, passing it to the back legs. It creates what we call pollen baskets. Can you spot that bee here? Besides collecting the pollen, the workers also collect nectar from flowers. They bring it back to the hive and store it in cells. They mix it with just the right amount of water. It results in honey.
Now that you know how much of our food relies on the honeybee, let's talk about the important job of the beekeeper. Beekeepers help preserve the bee populations. Beehives face a lot of challenges during the year, from cold winters to insufficient resources to human intervention, such as development overtaking their natural homes and spraying of pesticides that drive the bees away or kills them. Beekeepers do their best to help their hives survive through it all. Let's look at putting bees into a new hive where they will live and thrive. When preparing for new bees, or a new hive in general, you want to make sure that your frames and supers are all cleaned up. You want to get off all the propolis that the bees have left. They like to use that to seal up spaces. It's made with their saliva and beeswax and other things in nature like sap from a tree. Sometimes it's rock hard. Other times it's more of a beeswax consistency. So you want to strip all your frames from the added comb that they've used to fill in spaces and gaps. Here's an empty frame. This wood piece right here, we're going to take that out. It's going to help us later hold this foundation in place. The foundation is made of wax, and this one has some wire in it, and that will help keep it strong later during extraction. That wood piece that we took out earlier, we put back in, and it will help keep the foundation in place. Do you see these holes here? We put these pins in. The pins have a split there, and they go around the wax foundation and hold it in place to make it even more stable. The honey gets really heavy. There's our finished frame, ready for the bees to draw their comb out. Let's put our hive together. Here's the bottom piece, the stand. Do you see that wire? That'll keep any critters out that does not belong in the hive, but allow for a lot of ventilation for the bees. Here's more ventilation. Here's their front door. We can make it wider for a strong colony, or we can make it smaller. These side doors come off too. You only want to have these doors off for a really strong colony. That way they can keep intruders out. A new hive, you'll want to have a small front door for now. The bottom box, or super, is the brood box where the queen will lay eggs, and this top box is a bunch of empty drawn-out frames that they'll make honey in. Here's the lid. Notice all that propolis they've made on there. They like to glue things together. This hole is yet another entrance for them. This hive is equipped with some windows that we can observe the bees. Here's some more ventilation. You'll want as much ventilation in the hot months as possible. We'd seal that up in winter. It's time to add our bees to the newly cleaned hive. They came to us in a nuke, which is a 5-frame established colony. We want to work very carefully so that we don't injure them. We take the frames out one at a time and add them to the bottom brood box that we've prepared. This is a frame of brood, or eggs. You can tell by the brown cappings. I'm going to add this frame to the end here, so that we can look in our window later and see them working. I'm carefully inspecting each frame to make sure everything looks okay.
My hive supers hold 8 frames. With the 5 I'm adding in, I have those 3 new frames for them to continue working with. The frames fit pretty snug inside the super. Any spaces the bees will fill in with comb or propolis. Now that the bees are in their new hive, let's add the super that we've made with the old frames of drawn-out comb. They'll use this for honey. Finally, we will add the roof. Let's see how they're doing in their new home. They look happy. They got right to work. Listen to that happy buzz.
If you'd like to be a beekeeper, reach out to someone. We're all here to help, and we'd love to see future beekeepers. They're so important to us.
Let's see what you've learned today. What are the 3 types of honeybees in a hive, and what are some of their jobs? What does a beekeeper do, and why is this job so much more important now than ever before?
I've had so much fun being here with you guys today. I hope you enjoyed seeing the bees in action. Take care.